Hi, I'm going to give you a short tutorial video on how to make our first headband, which is the seed stitch twist headband. It has got only knit and purl stitches and it is made as a long rectangular piece. It is first joined along the long edges and then fitted into the round along the short edges. I am going to be using a 5mm circular needle. You can use either straight or circular needles for this, and I'm going to be using stocky yarn. You may have checked out different types of cast on techniques. If you are a beginner, you can check out various tutorial videos available on YouTube. I generally use the long tail cast on and I am used to that, so I will be giving a small demonstration of the long tail cast on. I take about 1 foot long length of yarn as a long tail. The size of this headband is completely customizable. Usually the width is the circumference of the head, which is around 22 inches. This length can be whichever you can decide the amount you want as the length. Approximately this yarn which I have used is a DK weight with a 4.5mm needle. I have taken 39 stitches in my cast on because it is a double, it has to be put into half, so that's why when you are casting on the number of stitches and when you start doing it, you have to assume that you're going to be switching it into half. Right now I'm going to be starting with casting on about 20 stitches because I'm going to make a thinner headband now. This tutorial I'll show first how to cast on. I take the two ends of the needle at the point which I want to start. The shorter end goes around the thumb. This is the end. This goes around the thumb. The ball which attaches to the yarn is the longer end. That goes around my index finger. I take the needle below the yarn. First I take it below the thumb, pick up the yarn, take it around the index finger, take it through the loop formed and drop it. This is the first cast on stitch. We now have 2 stitches on our needle. The second stitch would be same. You can look at it again. I go below the first, pick up the first loop from the index finger, take it through the hole and then pull in the shorter end. A third time through the index finger, take it and drop it. If you are not comfortable with this cast on, there are various other type of cast on techniques. You can search on YouTube and you can get an idea on how to do them. Once you start getting a hang of this, you can try just casting on multiple times, and once you get a hang of it, you will get an idea of how to maintain the tension, how much this should be pulled. We would try to keep it loosely kept on the needle so that we have enough space to take on the stitches when we start with the next line. These stitches are cast on the needle to form a base on which the stitches will be built up. I have now cast on 20 stitches on my needle. It is quite, it's about this broad, which will lead to a band which is less than half. So I'm going to go about a few more stitches. One thing that I must inform you is that for making this headband, you need to cast on an odd number of stitches. Then we will get a seed stitch pattern. For seed stitch, we always need to have an odd number of stitches. I'm done with my cast on. We have this short and we have the longer part. Now the seat stitch is formed by having alternating knit and purl stitches. This is a knit stitch, this is a purl stitch. If you have seen a knit stitch looks like this, and a purl stitch gives us this outward horizontal bar type of a look. When you are alternating the knit and purl stitch, you get a rib look. When continuous knit stitch, we get such a look. When we alternate the knit and purl stitches horizontally as well as vertically, we get a seat stitch look. So our first stitch is a knit stitch. We take the needle from front to back, wind the yarn around the needle and pull out the loop and drop the stitch. The next is a purl stitch, so the yarn has to be brought to the front. We put it in the needle from the front of the needle, wind the loop such, and then pull it out and drop the stitch. Again, for the next knit stitch, the yarn is taken to the back of the needle, front to back, go around the needle and pull it out and drop the stitch. Again, it's brought to the front, we go on like this. We have now reached the end of our first row. We always end in a purl stitch since we have used an odd number of stitches. Now we turn the needle around and we start back onto the first stitch. The first stitch here will look like a purl. So over this, again we start with knit, purl, knit. So our first stitch through this is again from the front to the back. Turn the yarn around and pull out through the front while dropping the loop. Our second stitch will be a purl. Take the yarn to the front, turn the yarn around the needle and drop it. Third is a knit, and we continue in the same fashion. The reason I have used a separate type of a yarn, a variegated yarn for this, is to show you the difference that we have when we use a variegated yarn and when we've used our regular solid color. When you use a variegated yarn with larger sections of color, we will be able to have a more striped look. Every line starts with the knit and the pattern is completely the same. we have now finished 2 lines of our pattern. We go on, so on, continue the same pattern for until the piece measures about 22 inches, and after that we continue with the further. You can appreciate a variation in the contour of the stitches, and it gives a very nice look.